evening. My name is Becky Ruby. I'm 3rd Ward Alderperson, and I'll be the chair of this week's Committee of the Whole meeting. The date is Monday, February 12th, 2018. I'd like to welcome everyone to City Hall to tonight's meeting. Let the record show that Alderman Cummings and Alderman Bruno are absent. Everyone else is in attendance this evening. Item 2 on the agenda is to approve Committee of the Whole minutes from January 22nd, 2018, and the special meeting on January 29th, 2018.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Kilberg, seconded by Swanson. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. A voice vote of all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. And now Mayor Burns is going to share, we're going to have a moment of silence. Mayor Burns is going to take over here.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of you received an email yesterday regarding the passing of our good friend Tim Carey, who began his services with the city of Geneva in 1988. In the year 2000, Tim became the crew leader for the downtown SSA, otherwise known as the Downtown Business District. And I think it's fair to say that for those of you who have lived in Geneva for a while and know full well how downtown has developed over the years in terms of its physical beauty, Mr. Carey is probably most responsible for that physical beauty. As crew leader of his team, he tended to the downtown as if it was his own backyard. In fact, Tim had his own landscaping business that he tended to while not working for the city and, of course, upon retirement. So when folks compliment the city, and I know the chamber and others, regarding the beauty of its business district, I think we all owe a great deal of thanks to Mr. Carey. His fingerprints are all over the downtown. Tonight we honor his life, his contributions. The city flag is raised, or excuse me, lowered to half staff, and will be through this Friday. Services for Mr. Carey are being held this Thursday in Elburn. And just a couple points of reference. The obituary was just printed earlier today. And I did not know this about Mr. Carey, but a Batavia High School graduate in 1972. Tim shipped off to Florida to hang out in Fort Myers Beach, came back, headed to Texas, came back, and of course joined the city in 1988. He was also a paid-on-call firefighter for the city of Batavia. He met his wife, Sherry, at his sister-in-law's wedding. You guys all know Tim Cohorse, who retired from the city of Geneva a few years ago. Well, Tim's wife, Lori, Tim Cohorse's wife, Lori, is Tim's wife's sister. So, small world indeed. Tim is survived by his wife, Sherry, 2 children, Diana and Christopher, 3 grandchildren, Sophie, Melanie, and Leah, and 2 sisters, several nieces, nephews, etc. I know from speaking with Mr. Babica that the crew at Public Works is, I think, still in shock. Mr. Carey retired just 19 months ago. And sadly, we have to say goodbye to him in a surprising way. So on behalf of his family, on behalf of all those who he's touched, on behalf of the extraordinary work that he performed, as Madam Chairman indicated, just a moment of silence to honor his life and contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is a presentation. This evening we have the pleasure to have with us Cynthia Wade, founder of Do Over Me Foundation. Would you like to come to the podium?
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to be here this evening. I won't take up a lot of your time. I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you. I have some handouts. I'm going to start over here with you, Bob. If you could all take one and pass them around, and then when they get over here, Nanette will pass them out to anybody in the audience who would like to have them. So my name is Cynthia Wade. I've been a Geneva resident for 20 years. I have one child, a daughter, Katie Scarlett, who graduated from Geneva High School. It was one of the best things that ever happened to us, moving into Geneva. And I can't say enough good things about the people and about the community. During most of the time that we were here, I was busy doing executive level recruiting, not in the Geneva area. But about 4 years ago, I found myself surprisingly unemployed. And when I did, I took a long, hard look at myself and my life and what skills I had to offer and decided to start a not-for-profit. So I'm here tonight to tell you very briefly about DoOver.me, which is the not-for-profit that I founded, that will be 4 years old next month. And here with me, just as moral support and to see what this all looks like, is Nanette Thomas Shepherdson, I always get it mixed up, who is a graduate student at Adler University and is one of 3 interns that is working with DoOver.me this school year. She started in September and will be completing her project in the end of April. So, first of all, by a show of hands, let me just see how many of you have ever heard of DoOver.me. Okay, well that's good. And what about you guys back here? Have you heard about it? Good. So DoOver.me is a career community center that was founded to support people who are unemployed, underemployed, or unhappily employed. And hey, that pretty much includes everybody, right? Because there's a lot of people that don't like their jobs for one reason or another. And a surprisingly large amount of people that, especially since the most recent recession, have had a really hard time finding jobs. And those are the people that we work with. So we do everything a traditional career community center does. We do testing and assessments, and we do resume rewrites and LinkedIn profile reviews, and we do coaching on networking and coaching on interviewing, and we set up mock interviews, and we videotape interviews, and we do all that stuff, okay? But what I learned in 11 years of executive level recruiting is the really hard part of finding a new job isn't any of that stuff. That's really the easy stuff. The hard stuff is you and what you're bringing to the table. And a lot of times, especially in our culture, our friend Don Cummings, who I know is often somewhere wonderful because that's what he does, right, has told me once that, you know, in Europe, people don't ask each other what they do like they do here. You know, you meet somebody and everybody wants to know, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? It's like he said, they don't do that in Europe. But when you are somebody here that defines yourself by what you do, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it, or you're not doing it well, or you're not doing it in the way that you want to be doing it, that starts to take a tremendous toll on your self-confidence, your self-worth, your self-efficacy. And what I learned is that if you can't get that up and going and really be serious about feeling good about that, when you go into a job search, you're not going to get a job. That's when they're going to say, oh, you know, it's just not a good fit. And they may not even be able to articulate why, but it won't be a good fit. So what makes us really different is, number one, we've helped people focus on emotional intelligences, the soft skills that more and more employers, especially employers of the future, are saying that people have to have, that ability to be strategic thinkers, to feel confident and effective in who they are and what they do. And if you can have that and bring that into a career interview, you may not have all of the skills that they've got listed, but you're going to probably have a much better chance of being hired. So that's one of the things that makes us different. The second thing that makes us different is that a lot of people don't have the money to pay a career coach or have the kinds of jobs that pay for outplacement services when they're let go. So they don't know how to go about navigating all of this. So what we do is we offer the same services to everyone, regardless of who they are, based on a sliding scale that focuses on their ability to pay. So if you're a young guy who's got a job and no dependents, then you're going to pay pretty much the going rate. But if you're a head of a household and you've got a partner that doesn't work and you've got 3 or 4 kids underfoot and a mortgage, then you're going to pay a much less percentage of whatever that going rate is to try to even the playing field. So that's who we are. We've been doing it here in Geneva quietly on the east side. I don't know how quietly, but on the east side of Geneva for almost 4 years, and we've had some really good success. And I wanted to have an opportunity to just bring this to your attention, that we're here, that this is who we are, that this is what we're doing, and that people don't have to go to Naperville anymore if they want a career community center, because they've got one right here in Geneva. We can do everything that the Naperville Community Career Center can do, and it's right in their own backyard. Okay? The other thing I wanted to let you know about is we've got 2 special programs that we were able to inaugurate this year with the help of Nanette and her cohorts. There are 3 Adler interns working with us this year, and this flyer that I passed out here is what they're working on. On one side, it talks about Faces of the Fox, and it shows the picture of Laura Esposito, who's actually a graduate of St. Charles High School. And now she's down at Adler working on a master's degree, and she is making Faces of the Fox happen. Faces of the Fox is an interactive community art project that is going to showcase the marginalized populations that already exist in the Fox Valley area, from Elgin on the north to Aurora on the south. Right now we're taking applications. Once we receive all of the individual faces, we will pair them with a photographer. We're going to try to use student photographers as much as possible, and a writer, which again will be a student if possible. And we're going to hang a show that is going to be a combination of photographs and short stories about all of these people who we nominate, who have been nominated to be Faces of the Fox. It's going to premiere at Pichacucha, and everybody tells me I say that wrong, so I apologize if you know better. That's how I say it, Pichacucha, in Batavia on May 31st. And then the first installation will be beginning on June 1st at Limestone Coffee and Tea in Batavia. It will hang there for a month, and then it will come to Geneva, and it will hang in the Geneva Public Library for the entire month of July. And then we've got dates that we're working with for both Aurora, Elgin, and St. Charles. We're going to try to create community dialogues as we go to help people understand that this is who the Fox Valley is. It's not just this very generic white bread, ordinary people that you think it is, but it already is rich with a bunch of diversity. We just aren't seeing it. So that's Faces of the Fox. Guiding Lights is a mentor program for DoOver.me. One of the things I'm really good at is solving problems in a creative way. So one of the things I realized last year was I can't do any more than I already do because there aren't enough hours in the day and I'm already tapped out. And yet we don't have the money to hire people. And that's when I got the idea about the interns. Let's partner with an intern, and they have to do this in order to be able to graduate, and they can take these projects that were dreams for me and make them reality. So we partnered with Gloria over at CASA, and took a look at what she's doing in terms of her volunteer program. And what we are doing is creating a similar kind of a volunteer program where every time a client walks in the door at DoOver.me, they're going to have an opportunity to be paired with a guiding light, a mentor, a friend, a colleague, somebody that's going to be able to help me help them. Now, are they going to be writing resumes and LinkedIn profiles? No, because most people don't have the expertise to be able to do that. But can they be a cheerleader? Yes. Can they be a good listener? Yes. Can they help to encourage and support and keep people going on the right path? Yes. Those are all the things that the Guiding Lights are going to be doing. And Nanette and her colleague Brandon Strickland are going to be putting that program up and running. So my purpose in coming here today, Nanette, asked me, what do you want from them? And I said, you know what? I really don't want anything from you. I just want you to be aware. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not here asking for your money, although that's always nice. But what I want you to do is know that we're here. This is who we are. This is the kind of work we're doing. You should be paying attention to it because it's really good stuff. And if anybody is ever in a position of asking you about the availability of these kinds of services, you'll be able to say, there's this place right on the east side of Geneva. You can go over there and, she's got a really good track record of being able to help people exactly like you. You should at least give her a call. So that's why I'm here, and that's what this was all about. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions from any of you if you have any. Oh, come on. I hate it when people do it. You guys can ask questions too. Now, one question for
I have
me?
a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. It's really great what you're doing and what you're offering to the community as far as helping people find employment. So I was curious, how many people are currently getting help from doover.me?
That's a great question. And it's a tough question to answer because it's fluid. So when somebody comes in and signs up to be a client at doover.me, first of all, when they do reach the success that they identify what they want to achieve, we say that a pig is flying, because at doover.me we say nothing is impossible. We even teach pigs to fly. Some pigs it takes longer to learn to fly than others. Some people learn to fly and then have a crash landing and come back and have to get a few more refresher courses. So the whole point of it is that, I've had people walk into the door and say, this is what I need. I'm very focused. I know what I need. I know what I have to do. I just need help getting there. And we can really work with them fast and hard and heavy, and in 5 or 6 weeks they can have a job. I've had other people that after 18 months, they're still not getting what they say they want. Because it's not my job to tell you what you want, what success is for you. It's my job to listen to you and to try to get you what you want. But what I can tell you is, depending upon the circumstances, in most cases, if you walk in there as an older person and haven't had a job for 12, 18 months or more, because you're looking for the exact same job that you lost 12 or 18 months before, you know what? The chances of that happening are slim, very slim. And I will tell them that. But if that's still what they want to work towards, I can't tell them that they can't. So some, it takes a lot longer. Some find a totally different kind of path along the way and realize that, she was right. I'm not going to be able to find what I was looking for, but I am going to be able to find something else. So it varies. We've had over 300 people walk through our doors in the 4 years, almost 4 years. We've had over 100 achieve success in one level or another. The people that we don't help are usually people that walk out because they think, I'm going to do it all for them. And I'm not. That's not the way this works. This is a hand out, a hand up, not a hand up, not a hand out. I'm here to help you, but I can't do it for you. I can't make these decisions for you. I can't do the work for you. I'm here to help you. And when they realize that, I have to do this, and I have to look at myself and I have to decide, a lot of people are really uncomfortable in any kind of a position where they have to speak to other people, even in an interview, even salespeople in an interview. And I say, one of the things you really should think about doing is going to improv or joining Toastmasters, because you really need to learn how to communicate more effectively in an interview situation. And they don't want to do that. So, We will work with a person as long as they're willing to work towards their goal. Does that answer your question?
It does,
In kind of a roundabout way? So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Cynthia, thanks for coming tonight. You're such a dynamo. I think if we ever have a power outage, we could just like plug you into the city's electric grid and be totally fine. Because
Yeah, well-
I've gotten to hear you speak a few times, and really glad to have you in Geneva. I'm sure a lot of the people who pass through your doors maybe come to a realization that they want to be in business for themselves or have some project or passion project they want to pursue. Is there anything the city of Geneva or we can be doing to encourage entrepreneurship here in the city that could then lead to more jobs
Well,
in the
Geneva
city, or-
already has a thriving community of small businesses. And I'm tapped tightly into them for two reasons. Number one, because they provide opportunities for me to share what we do at DoOver.me with other people, because we can't do everything. So, you know, if I get somebody, I always tell people, you know, you need to get out in front of your finances. So there's a zillion financial planners in the Geneva, not a zillion, but there's several very good, reputable financial planners who I can recommend people go to. So that's one really good thing that Geneva already does. The other thing is that they provide jobs, you know, small businesses provide jobs. And anybody who is in Geneva or the Kane County area that has jobs, you know, if you tap into me and let me know what you're looking for, I don't always have it. I mean, we're not like a big monster place where there's, you know, hundreds of people that are going in and out. But I have connected people specifically to open job opportunities, and that's one of those ways that that timetable that we talked about lessens from 6 months to 6 weeks.
What would you, I'm also interested, I mean, you know, if you knew somebody in high school or college now, what would you be telling them? The rules are different than
Oh,
when.
the rules are so
yeah.
different, and I could talk for an hour just on that, really. I guess the most important thing is that the kids coming out of school, they're going to be asked to do different things than what any workforce ever was asked to do before. You're going to have to really think and be strategic. You know, the days of industrial work where you're told what to do by a manager who is monitoring you doing the same thing over and over and over again are gone, because knowledge isn't what it was at one time. Knowledge is available to everybody. So knowledge isn't power anymore. What is power is the ability to put all the dots together, make it make sense, communicate it effectively to somebody else, and then be able to monetize it in some way so that people can make money. Because in the world we live in, you know, that's ultimately the currency. You know, so if kids don't know how to think for themselves, how to speak effectively for themselves, I don't care where their degree comes from, I don't care what kind of a GPA they have, they're not going to make it. Thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions? You have my contact information. We have a very robust website. If you have any other questions, I invite you to call me. We can have a cup of coffee, look at the website. I'm happy to interact with any of you in any way. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for being here. Ms. Wade, I do want to comment, I couldn't help but notice our staff got copies of your handouts, and I'll be confiscating those at the end of the meeting.
Well, you know, all right, so Scott, as a recruiter, I used to get in trouble sometimes by the bosses, and they'd say, I understand you're calling everybody on my staff today wanting to get somebody to move, but here's the deal. If you are a good employer, then you have a good employee. And I can call them up and try to recruit them, and they're not gonna move because they're happy. They're getting what they need. And the flip side of that is, if you're a bad employer and you're not giving them what they need, then do you really want them there anyway? I mean, who wants, life is too short to be unhappy every day. For them, when they come to work, and for you to be sitting there watching them be unhappy. There's a place for everybody. There's never a bad job or a bad candidate. There's just bad fits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to item 4 on the agenda, items of business. Item A this evening is recommend draft ordinance adding one Class C1 liquor license to the city code for 1910 Bar Inc., located at 30 West State, Suite 200.
So moved.
And a second? discussion?
Is the applicant here tonight?
Yes, yes.
Do you mind coming up to the podium?
Lindsay De Los Santos is the owner of 1910 Bar, and she's here to answer any questions.
Great, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Can you tell us a bit about your concept and vision for
Yeah,
the
sure,
bar?
definitely. So, so we're looking for another liquor license because it's going to be an entirely different business than we have downstairs. It's going to be, more of a modern industrial feel to it, whiskey bar, craft beer. We are going to have a small plate menu, but it's going to be entirely, separate than what we have downstairs, so.
And now I had somebody, on my Facebook page, I always post the agenda, and he said, how are they gonna do this? There's only stairs upstairs and they're very narrow and steep. Is that
Yeah.
an issue?
Okay, so the stairs are why it's taken us like 6 months longer. We were hoping to open in November, but these stairs have just been a huge issue. So, yes, we did the back south stairs where you see the entrance to the bar. We did redo those to code. And we have a new set of stairs that is going, or it went in, but we have to redo them because the stair builder didn't do them to code. But we have a new set of stairs that's like right inside the front door for Sergio's. So, and it goes over the bar. So,
So the man who wrote in obviously knew what he was talking about, so yeah.
yeah, it's been a really big deal because we switched architects in the meantime because the original architect, he didn't draw the stairs to code. So we had our whole layout, and so once we had them drawn to code, it bumped them up like 5 feet, and we had to redo the whole layout and had to do all new drawings, which cost us like 4 months to redo drawings. And then we had the new stairs go in, in the front door over Sergio's, and they weren't done right. It's everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll get your license tonight
Yeah,
or
that'd be
next
great.
week, and we'll all come and give you some
Yeah,
business, so,
yeah, hopefully.
great. What time will you be closing with how late can you stay open with this license?
Geez, I don't
2
know,
a.m.
honestly. 2 a.m. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Alderman Radecki?
Probably for Stephanie. This classification of license, this does have the longest operating hours to it, is that correct? Or do they,
I think aren't most
are they
licenses are all the same?
all 2 AM or is it,
Yeah.
they are?
It's an option provided to the license holder. As we all know, many locations do not stay open till 2 a.m.
Yeah, I don't, we're not anticipating that,
Yeah.
but, yeah. Any other?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, voice vote is sufficient. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? It passes unanimously. Okay,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Okay, item 4B, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a professional services contract with Rempe Sharp and Associates in the amount not to exceed $31,300 for engineering design water system improvements. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
By Mark, seconded by Burkhart. Okay, and discussion? Alderman Kellberg?
Would this, how would this potentially play into the redevelopment of the lot at the corner of State and East Side Drive? Is this critical for the future redevelopment of that site?
I wouldn't say it's critical, but I think it's going to help getting the easements that we need for, along State Street for the, how do I want to say it? There's the right-of-way acquisition that we're going to need for the East State Street improvements there.
So,
In other words, when we do this, we'll be able to negotiate with whoever comes in there as far as the ability to get the right-of-way acquisition. Am I not explaining it?
what, okay.
This consultant is going to be able to design, we've given them, copies of the Phase 2 plans for the intersection improvements. So this consultant will be able to take the Phase 2 design that's under review right now with IDOT for the intersection improvements for the reconstruction of East State Street. So we'll be making sure that the water main is out of that location. So in essence, what it's going to do is help with the marketability of that site because the water main is going to be in a location now. So whenever that site does develop, it's not going to have to get moved again, be it in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whenever that site's ready to pop.
Has this been an impediment to the future redevelopment of that site? Has it entered into,
You're gonna have every
I
department head up
simply
here.
can't answer that question.
what's that?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Anybody that would come to that area would need better service than what there is currently right now, water service. Otherwise, they would have to go on the other side of East Side Drive and tap onto the water main over there. So this will not only benefit us as a utility by looping that system and getting rid of the dead end, but it will, allow a developer to come in, probably would like that, better than having to go across East Side Drive to connect.
Across East Side Drive, you mean to the west side of East Side Drive?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimously. Okay, item 4C, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a parkway tree inventory contract with Graff Tree Care, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $47,970. Do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mark, seconded by Burkhart. Any discussion? Okay, Alderman Swanson?
I was curious, given that we haven't done an inventory for 18 years, a couple questions. One, is it essential that we do this year, given that we have a very outdated inventory? Number two, is it essential that we have a professional services contract to do it, or could we do it in a less expensive fashion, perhaps utilizing college students or something? I'm aware that we might lose some of the details that we might be getting out of this process, but I think it could be done much less expensive than $48,000. And then number three, what we're going to do with the information and when we would start doing that. So I guess I'm looking for some background with that aspect.
Okay, I will probably have to ask you to repeat some of those questions.
Sure.
I'm a little groggy from this weekend, but question number one was?
Given that it's been 18 years, is it essential that we do it now? Or could it wait? And my backdrop there is we are currently asking the citizens to approve a referendum for additional tax revenues. And I see that as perhaps not the greatest idea for a non-essential expense to be approved in a year that we're asking for additional funding.
Okay. I would say that the benefit of this particular idea is that we would get, several years ago, obviously, we had the emerald ash borer, and we lost many, many trees. In that transition, some got replaced, some did not. The benefit of this would be to find locations that do not have trees that were replaced, and that would identify them, how many we can put there. It also gives us an idea of what we have for species and the different type of species that we have, so that we're not overloading on, say, maples or lindens or things of those nature. So it definitely helps our tree canopy and our species variation. If you have, never mind. I apologize, but in my opinion, yes, it's been 18 years. It would help us also get an idea of where our trees stand. We have part of the process is that they do an evaluation on each tree, and they give us an idea of the health of the tree, whether it's a very viable tree, whether it needs some attention, whether it's routine trimming or some maintenance trimming that needs to be done, or if it's a tree that just we absolutely have to remove because it's at that point where it's no longer a viable tree. And then we get into the whole liability issue of not maintaining it and all that stuff, so. In my personal opinion, yes, it is something that is needed since it has been 18 years and we have not kept up on that. I don't know why, that was well before me, but 18 years ago, I got a big binder that's just sitting on my shelf with old information.
Okay,
That answers question.
okay.
Question one.
That was question, and part two, could it be done in a different fashion by different types of professionals or semi-professionals so that we get most of the information, but certainly save a lot of, for example, college students during the summer? Could they do it over a 4-year period, or a 4-week period, and come up with most of the information? Obviously, perhaps they would not be able to ascertain the health of the tree, but I'm assuming that somehow we're getting that information too. We certainly know when a tree needs to be cut down. So, question is, are there other options available to do this in a less expensive fashion?
I'm gonna jump in on this one because I have some previous experience from this, from another community. Of course, there are other options. They're always available, volunteers or interns. But the issue you have with that is that this information is going to go into the city's database. The parkway trees are an asset, just as important as the fire hydrants or the water mains or the roadways themselves. And as an asset, it's our responsibility, or it's my actual responsibility as the public works director to make sure those assets are being maintained in a proper and professional manner. So if we're bringing in even interns that maybe have a vested interest in arboriculture, or they're studying for their arborist certification, there's no long-term commitment. I'm trying to be polite in this one, and to the validity of the database. By hiring a professional consultant, if the database becomes compromised or if the review of what's actually out there doesn't quite match up to the database, we can go to that professional consultant and they're going to have to make the database right. If I hire a bunch of summer interns, maybe they're going to work for us for 12 weeks and then they're going to go get a better intern job or graduate and they're not going to be coming back. So they have no sense of ownership to that program. And then you still have to have the professional staff to monitor that intern while they're collecting that information and combine it all in. And it's not a 4-week program. In my previous experience, we had 2 college students, both highly responsible, and turned into nice, solid professionals to this day. But they spent 16 weeks surveying the community, and they got through about 1/5 of it. So that was 2 of them. Plus the fact that some of the information that Nate's looking for such as the hazard assessment, that unless you've been trained and you know what to look for in a tree, that's not something that a college student, again, unless they're very well advanced in the arboricultural studies, is going to be able to identify. They need to look at why is, if the ground is cracking and there's roots cracking at the base, is that an issue? As opposed to carpenter's ants or conchs on the trees, or the difference between a split and a curl or included bark. These are all things that a professional arborist knows what they're looking for and has been trained to the standards of the industry. So I can take that information and make sure that the tree is dangerous, it can be removed. But then if we have an insurance claim and they point to that tree, I can pull up and say the professional arborist on this date looked at that tree and it wasn't there. So there is a sense that you're going to get what you pay for is the simplest answer on that one. Question 3?
Question 3 is, once we have this information, do we have the wherewithal, will they be actionable? For example, if trees are identified as needing additional maintenance, are we going to be doing that next year? Or are we going to start removing more trees that we deem that need to come out immediately? What is going to change with this new information from the previous inventory that is outdated?
All right, so to answer your question, simply, yes. So if there is a tree that needs to come down, they will be coming down. Maintenance that is determined needs to be done will be done. The other benefit of this is that we can put this out to the public. So we would put this on our GIS system, and then the residents would have access to that layer, and they would be able to access what's going on with their tree as far as service history to it. So if they wanted to see the last time it was trimmed and what kind of trimming was done, whether canopy was raised or the canopy was thinned, things like that, they could see that. They could see when it was done. It also gives you the benefit of actually knowing what tree's out front of your house. So if you wanted to say, I don't know what's up front, I want to see, you click on it, boom, it tells you exactly what tree you got and how big it is and everything else. So, but the answer to your question is yes, we would, those things that need to be addressed immediately would be addressed immediately. So.
So in other words, if we're working with limited resources, and if the trimming is going to be undertaken by city staff, will it provide some type of a triage as to which trees need to be attended to as it relates to being a priority? In other words, I'm sure that there's probably enough tree trimming and work that we can't get it all done in the summer, spring, summer, and fall. I'm just wondering, are they going to provide us with information as to the state of a tree and why it may need attention this year rather than a year or two out? Will it do that for us, or are they going to give us, and I think maybe Alderman Swanson touched on this, but is it going to give us some type of an idea on where we need to focus our attention?
Actually, I do have a representative from Graft Tree Care here right now, Jim Sinelka. He may be better suited to answer
Okay.
that question, but I believe the answer would be yes.
I guess my interest is along the same lines as Alderman Swanson, that information, yeah, is important, but how do we use the information, and how does it make us more efficient? How is it going to save the city valuable resources? That's what I'd sort of be interested in. And I'm sure that if you drive around town, there are trees that need attention. It needed attention last year. Will that help us with that?
Yes, sir, will. As a matter of fact, in 2000, the last time this survey was done, where I believe they surveyed a little over 9,600 trees, the consultant at the time identified 192 trees that they deemed should either be immediately removed or removed within 12 months. And those were categorized basically from 1 to 192. And the staff then worked through removing those 192 trees. Then, based off of the assessment of those trees and the age of the trees, we can start working towards getting into the 7-year rotation again for parkway tree trimming. Much as, unfortunately, due to the emerald ash borer and the devastation that wrought on the urban tree canopy, we are currently on about a 12-year rotation. So it's not the worst, it's not the best either. But, you know, the industry standard is try to get between a 5 and a 7-year rotation, and I think a 5 year is probably woefully optimistic. But the key with doing a 7-year rotation on a parkway tree, and Alderman Marks, you went through this last year with Eagle Brook.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes when we have not been out to trim up a tree in 10 years, and then we show up and we take it up to 8 feet or 10 feet, it's quite a change in appearance to the residents, and it's also can become a bit of a shock to the tree. There's a world of difference for a tree to heal a 4-inch removal as opposed to a 2-inch removal. And if we get on that 7-year rotation, now we're taking off 2-inch branches, and we can be a little bit more adapt to the conditions of forming the tree. And our goal is to get that urban tree canopy that's arching over the street and creating that tunnel effect. And because our resources have been limited to dealing with the ash borer, we simply haven't been able to get to that point. So this inventory not only is going to give us the hazardous identification and allow Nate to prioritize where his resources are on that one, but then to start looking into these neighborhoods saying, well, you know, maybe maybe we're going to target Fisher Farms, which we're not, so don't do that in paper. But for example, if that was the target for next year's tree trimming, he would know how many trees he needs to do, which would allow him to make sure that he's scheduling the resources to get that done. It's really about being asset management and being proactive instead of reactive.
So would it also help with strategically placing certain trees, creating a commingling of different species? Then will will that come into play then with the software? I guess I'm interested in how the software comes into play, and what are the costs associated with the software after the inventory's been conducted?
Well, with this proposal, the software that we're going to use is what we currently have in-house already, the GIS software that we already have, so that
Okay.
there is no additional cost.
Okay, the other proposals included proprietary software.
Correct, correct, the other.
So our software is 20 years old?
No, no.
Oh.
The former tree inventory is 20 years old.
Okay.
The software, maybe it may have been included then, but for some reason was not kept up.
It's
Like that.
GIS software, so it's not limited to trees. It's our GIS system that we track pretty much everything on.
Oh, inventory.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But to answer your question on tree species, the software itself won't have, I mean, it won't give us that information from the software. That is what the survey is for. So
Okay.
the survey will give us,
So in other words, the 47 or 48,000 is one and done then, in that,
yes,
do we need their services next year and the year after at all?
no.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Alderman Radecki?
Yeah, I guess, Rich, quick question. You know, you made a really good point. I was going the same place that Alderman Swanson was. You know, it's a fair amount of money in a tough year and all that, and you wonder, hey, is this soft spending, is it not? But, you know, you drove a point home when you said, hey, this is an asset. It's like our fire hydrants, it's like everything else. What would you guess that asset is worth to us right now?
Well, the cost to plant a tree is about $275 for a 2.5-inch caliper tree, roughly, depending on the exact species.
And then what's the
Or-
value of a
It-
15-inch tree and a 20, you know, I mean, this is going to extend the life of these
There-
trees. This is going to create, you know, I mean,
There actually is a formula, and we
Yeah.
use it when
my guess is it's a
parkway trees
very
have to be
large.
removed for either construction or for an accident or for, you know, if a driveway has to be widened and we have to take out a parkway tree. There actually is a standard formula by arboricultural standards where they can figure out the species and the growth canopy. But there was just for example, on the east side of town, there was a shagbark hickory that was removed that had a net present value of over $14,000. The resident decided to move their driveway to another location rather than remove the tree.
I guess it's in the multiples of millions of dollars, the value of our canopy.
If you did just $250 a tree at 14,000 trees, you're looking at $3.8 million.
Yeah.
So if you take in then the trees that have been around for years,
Yeah, yeah, and I have firsthand experience too. You know, when you get to a tree and you trim it up, and you know, it is a little shocking at first. It's a little piece of broccoli, but boy, it does very well in year 2, 3, 4. It's a huge, you know, keeping that asset going and prolonging the life of that and all the aesthetics. You know, at first I was kind of, when I read the packet, I thought, I was going to be loaded for a little discussion here, but I think you convinced me this is a good expenditure and it's something that we need to do. So thanks a lot.
The other advantage of this inventory is that it is also a prerequisite for a number of federal and state grants as well as private sector grants. That we are in Tree City, but this will allow us to actually be more global in our aspect of trying to secure additional grant funding.
I had one other question. How does this relate with the utility, or with the electric department, and are they going to help identify trees that pose potential risk to electrical service as well, or is that still something that we'll make the determination internally?
Most of the trees that are scheduled for line clearing are on utility easements and not in the city's parkways. But one of the categories that this inventory will include was if there are overhead lines, because that's one of the hazards they have to identify, that we would know that, say there's a Norway maple there, and the Norway maple dies off, we'll know that because there's an overhead line, that would be the proper plants for a utility tree or for no tree at all, which I'm sure would be the electric utility's preference.
Thanks.
Alderman Burkhart?
My question's probably for Stephanie. NRC does such a great job of raising money and helping replace our trees in the parkway. Is there any thought of asking them to help with this inventory?
we actually already did ask them to help, and they prefer to just buy trees and did not want to participate in this endeavor.
And how do they determine where they place the
They,
trees?
they meet with Public Works and they go on walking tours and they have an idea of kind of, they want to be in a visible area so they can say this was donated by NRC. But we also work with them to identify spots that we feel are important also.
And then when, Rich mentioned assets, I wish, I don't have my notes, but when we did the focus groups, was it something that kind of surprised all of us, how high trees placed
The
on
tree canopy was very high.
Yes.
We're still working through those results. I sent out maybe a joint meeting in the middle of May to talk about some of that. But definitely trees are an important asset to the residents.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a comment, actually. I'm not sold on staff, on resources that we have, just the fact that the tree trimming should ideally occur every 7 years, and we're currently at a 12-year cycle because of emerald ash, which I understand, which is a surprise, but what if there's another surprise? And we get this information, and there are needs that we don't have resources to fulfill.
The reason why we did slip into the 12-year cycle really was because we were responding to the ash borer, and those were declared, there we go, a hazard by the state of Illinois, Illinois Department of Agriculture. So we were obligated by law to remove those trees whenever we came across them and they were diseased. But as Nate mentioned earlier today, the need for biodiversity, the rule is 30-20-10-5. So no more than 30% of your canopy is any one species of tree, and then 20% is a cultivar of a tree, and then 10% is a subspecies of that tree. So you think that, and I'm going to get on my arborist soapbox here for a minute, so I apologize. You think that after the Dutch elm disease in the 70s and 80s that we would have learned our lesson, and then we overpopulated with the ash tree because the ash tree it's a beautiful parkway tree. It's drought resistant, it's wind resistant, it's strong, it tolerates salt really well. I mean, it was the ideal parkway tree. We have neighborhoods where almost 60%, 70% of the parkway trees in the neighborhood were ash trees. They just got decimated. You'd think we would have learned that lesson. Now, at least I think, as an industry, and not just in public works, but also in the arboricultural industry and even, planning, is that we really are pushing for that biodiversity. And especially now up here, we're pushing to replant with more native trees, hackberries and Kentucky coffee trees and oaks, especially red oaks. So we're trying to be more native friendly, not just to the Fox River, but to the state of Illinois. So that's where this is going to come in and help us with that information, and hopefully by extending that biodiversity, that if there is another one, such as when the Asian longhorn beetle was found in the city of Chicago, and Chicago did a wonderful job with containing that and quarantining that within the city limits, because they were decimating maples. So that is something that we want to make sure that we're not overpopulating with maples. Chestnuts is another one that's getting decimated right now on the East Coast, in Maryland and Chesapeake Bay area. So again, it's biodiversity is the key.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on this one.
Tara Burkhardt?
Aye.
Becky Ruby?
Nay.
Dean Kilburg?
Aye.
Craig Maladra?
Aye.
Richard Marks?
Aye.
Jean McGowan?
Aye.
Jim Radecki?
Aye.
Robert Swanson?
Nay.
Motion passes 6-2.
Okay. Item 4D, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of an operation and maintenance agreement with Caterpillar Power Generation LLC for generation facility operations 2018, 2019, and 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Marks, and a second?
Second.
Seconded by Burkhart. Any discussion? All right, a voice vote is sufficient. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The motion passes unanimously. Okay. Item 4E, recommend certificate of acceptance for Sunset Prairie for parkway improvements in Outlot B. Do I have a motion? And a second? Okay. Moved by McGowan, seconded by Swanson. Alderman Marks?
I'm recusing myself from this, like I mentioned it, yeah.
Okay. Discussion? Okay. All right. A voice vote is sufficient. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, item 4F, recommend draft resolution authorizing a grant of utility easement to the City of St. Charles, Illinois for Parkside Reserve Townhome Development. Do I have a motion? Okay, moved by McGowan, seconded by Kilberg. Any discussion? Okay, voice vote. Oh, Alderman Kilberg?
I guess I just wondered, as you look at this chronologically, I guess I'm wondering why the developer in St. Charles, some of these things weren't anticipated in advance. It seems like they're catching up here, making the determination that you got sewer and water service are going to be divided. Does anyone know why this is sort of after the fact? I know that we had a discussion in regard to this 2 or 3 months ago. Is that right? And I'm just wondering why the developer didn't anticipate some of these things in advance and that it wasn't resolved in advance. Because, I mean, they're into the project already, so what if we decided we didn't want to do that? Or, I know that we made the decision with the Park District already, but are they just catching up?
I know that they've cleared the land and they've gone through their public hearings and committee meetings with the City of St. Charles. You are right. We actually started working with this developer when we replaced the water main down North First Street, and then involved the Geneva Park District and St. Charles about getting them water, which resulted in the IGA that was just adopted. Basically, we're at this stage now because the developer feels they're ready to move forward on the project. It was always anticipated that we were going to provide them water, and then the City of St. Charles was going to provide the sanitary service. I think the wrinkle showed up is that when they were doing their title search and found out that the City of Geneva actually owns a parcel of land in the City of St. Charles, which I would think, again, after doing this for 27 years, I'd run out of, this is a first to say, but this is the first time I've ever worked for an agency that actually owns property inside another agency. So this is a kind of a new experience for myself also. But the easy answer is that the developer is ready to move forward at this stage.
And this will be financially beneficial to the City of Geneva because we'll be selling them water, right?
Correct. The city executed an IGA with St. Charles, and we're actually selling them water at a premium rate.
Good. Okay, thank you. That's okay.
As they play the North Stars tonight, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Passes unanimously. Okay, item 4G, recommend draft resolution awarding a contract to TNT Landscape Construction in an amount not to exceed $11,185.25 for the City of Geneva identification signage planting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Burkhart. Discussion? Alderman McGowan?
Thank you. I think that the landscape design plans look really good, as outlined in the packet. But one thing I'd want to recommend is that some lighting be added. I don't know if there's an inexpensive way to just add some solar-powered lights. But especially for the new City of Geneva sign that's by the Walgreens on Britcher. I've driven by after dark, and it's really hard to see that there's anything there. So are there any plans to add some lighting to these signs?
When the design, we had a design group that met with, worked with Lannert Group. At that time, it was discussed, and we did leave provisions, spacing for lighting in the landscape plan, should that ever be the desire to add that, but we did not include it at the time. There was a few reasons, costs being one, but also being able to have that source at that location. So it was not fully vetted, it was just looked at like this might be something that we do later. That's my recollection.
Okay, is it possible to somehow get an estimate of what the cost would be for some solar power, even if it was like those solar powered stick lights that you buy at Menards or something? And then kind of add that to it, because it's such, you know, we're being asked to spend a lot of money for the landscaping, which is really nice, and the signs are really beautiful. It would be great to just maximize the visibility of those signs, because especially like, you know, 6 months out of the year, it's pretty dark here. So, and there's a lot of business that goes on in Geneva after dark. So it would be just great to highlight those signs. I think that the stick lighting, you know, would be a good like temporary solution, solar powered stick lights. Maybe they're not that,
They're just not that
Right?
powerful, but
Yeah.
certainly we can look into it, and as we're developing the budget for next year, we can look at some costs and see what that would be, if that's the general consensus.
sounds good, thank you.
One of the things that we did talk about when we were meeting at a committee was that the solar lights, that it's a difficult climate for the solar lights, and that our expectations for those might not be met. So we could reignite those discussions and get our memories refreshened and bring that back at a later time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimously. Great. Item 4H, recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a market license with Benzodune USA, Inc. for open air market, April 15th, 2018 through November 11th, 2018. Motion? Okay. Moved by McGowan, seconded by Swanson. And any discussion? Okay. Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, passes unanimously. Item 4I, recommend draft resolution approving execution of an auditing services agreement with Baker Tilly Virchow Kraus LLP for fiscal year 2018 through 2021. Do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second? Second. Okay, moved by Marks, seconded by Kilberg. Okay, and discussion? Okay, voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimously. 4K, recommend draft ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 1, Section 2 regarding collection of delinquent utility bills. Motion?
And I think we missed one. I
Oh,
think we're on
sorry.
J still.
Oh, sorry. Okay. J, recommend draft resolution and declaration of trust of the Illinois Trust and authorizing certain officials to act on behalf of the City of Geneva. Motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Okay, so moved by Marks, seconded by Burkhart. Okay, and discussion? Okay. Voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, now 4K? All right, once again, recommend draft ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 1, Section 2 regarding collection of delinquent utility bills. Motion?
Second.
Moved by McGowan, seconded by Marks. Any discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item 5, new business. Is there anything a member of the council would like to bring forth tonight? Anyone from the public? Okay.
If it could indulge, the city council could indulge me on this one. The forecast for this week is 40 degrees on Wednesday and rain, and 44 degrees on Thursday with thunderstorms. And while I'm sure we're all looking forward to some heat for a change, we had 16 inches of snow last week, and with rain and the ground frozen, this is going to create intense situations for the street division again and for the water utility as they work to keep the drains open and to keep the streets moving. I would simply request that if you're a member of the public and you have a storm drain in your backyard or an inlet in your backyard, if you could be so kind over the next 48 hours to try to dig that out or at least make it accessible so the water can get into it. While I can make and ensure that my staff is going to clean out all the catch basins and inlets and structures within the roadway and the right-of-way, simply don't have the resources to get into people's backyards, nor do I think they would appreciate us bringing a backhoe into someone's backyard to dig it out. So just asking for a little cooperation. It's kind of unusual, but just asking for a little help from our friends on this one.
You might also reference the fire hydrants as well. I know that the chief put out a notice to that effect as well.
That is correct. The fire hydrants, because again, with the 16 inches of snow and we had about 6 inches of snowpack on top of it, it is going to start making the access to some of these fire hydrants more problematic. In addition to the fire department, we also have that on our things to do list to start digging them out. But, in those situations, as Chief Antonori has said numerous times, seconds do matter. So the more access they can get to those assets, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, Alderman Maladra.
Yes, I'd like to move that we convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C5 and 2C6 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the purchase, lease, or sale of real property for the use of the city.
Can I get a motion, please?
That was.
Oh, I'm
Need a
sorry,
second.
second? Okay, seconded by Marks. Okay, and we need a roll call vote, please?
Tara Burkhart? Aye. Becky Ruby?
Aye.
Dean Kilberg? Aye. Craig Maladra?
Aye.
Richard Marks? Aye. Jean McGowan?
Aye.
Jim Radecki? Robert Swanson?
Yeah, no action being taken. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay, no action being taken. We'll be back in a moment.